Hey everybody, this is Carl from carlsaptio.com, and today I'm here with another Python tutorial. If you want to check out any of my other tutorials, head over to carlsaptio.com and you can have a look at my HTML or Python tutorials. I will be adding more on CSS and JavaScript in the time to come. So today we're going to be looking at the use of a while loop, and we're going to be making our first basic heads or tails game. Okay, the first thing we have to acknowledge is the use of the import statement, and we're going to use import random. What this is basically showing us is Python can't actually generate its own numbers, therefore we have to tell it to, therefore we have to actually import our own random numbers. So this is its only way of generating its own random numbers. So since it's a heads or tails game that we're going to be making, we can make our initial statement saying print did you win the game, and speech marks and brackets. So let's first of all see what this looks like. And okay, so this has come up here. Now if you want to separate the title from the actual first statement, all you can do is put a backslash and n within the print statement and it will come up as a separate paragraph. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just as easily put print and then two speech marks and close it. Okay, so now after we've done this, we have to use another variable called tails, and we're going to use the random number that we're going to be using dot random integer, which is another statement, and we're going to be using this with a range of values from 0 to 1. Now the only values that can actually appear can be either 0 or 1 because we're using a random integer. If we were using floats, then obviously it could be a number in between here because float is a decimal point, but since we're using purely integers, because it's a heads or tails game, it makes life a lot easier. This shows that effectively you have a 50% chance of getting a 0 or a 50% chance of getting a 1. Now after we do this, so we can make a if statement saying if tails is equivalent to 0, then we can then a colon, and then we can say we can print something along the lines of, oh no, you've got tails, you lose. However, if we set, now since there's a 50% chance of getting heads, we can make an else statement saying if we get heads, so we can print well, hey, you got heads, you win. So now let's print off this statement. Let's print off this program and see how it runs. So over here it says, did you win the game? Well, hey, you got heads, you win, well done. And obviously there is a 50% chance of you getting a 0 as well. Now the next thing we're going to be looking at is, instead of having to constantly repeat this by pressing the F5 to rerun the module each time, can we try to make it go in, can we try to have several goes at once rather than having to keep repeating it? And the answer is yes. What we have to do here is, where you have your tails variable, if you press enter, we can now use a statement called for the number of goes in the range of, let's say, 6 times, and then we put a colon. And after this, make sure you remember that you have to use your white space carefully, because if you use it wrong, I'll just quickly demonstrate that as well. If you use it wrong, what's going to happen is it's pretty much just not going to recognize what you've done. So I can run it, but it says unexpected in indent block, which is over here, and we're talking about the everything within the for statement. So therefore everything has to be within here. It's like a subcategory, if you will. So once you've done this, we can rerun the module, and it's going to come up with, oh no, you've got tails, oh no, you've got tails, oh no, you've got tails. This is because what's actually happened is you have used iteration, and it's set a value, and then it's done it 6 times. So it may have picked 0 over here, and since it's picked 0, it picks 0 and then replicates it 6 times. Therefore, all it's going to say is you got tails, you lose 6 times. What we can do now is, instead of doing this, we can make a little print statement to show you what number it's actually picked. So first of all, let's say we had an unbiased coin and we had a 75% chance of winning. That's what the 0, 3 indicates. You've got a 75% chance of winning and a 25% chance of losing. So over here we can use our range. So we go to 4 goes in range 6 : we can make a quick print statement, print saying testing tails, TAILS, and then we can have a little squiggly bracket with a 0, which is just effectively a placeholder, and then we can end the speech marks and dot format, and then we have tails, TAILS. Okay, so now when we rerun this module, we're going to say, okay, you lose because you're testing tails, as in your testing value that you're using is 0. So this is what I was talking about earlier. It says it first of all determines the value, and then it will repeat the value 6 times in this case. So after this, now we're going to actually figure out how we can improve on this so it actually comes out to be completely right. This is where we start to introduce the use of a while loop. So now let's first of all just delete all of this, just that little section, and we're going to be introducing something called the while loop. So if you want to play the game, so we can first of all assign a variable called play, and we can assign this to be yes. So as long as you agree to playing the game, the entire process will run. Now after you've done this, we can say while first of all, then we have import the random number, and this here is where we introduce the while statement. So we can say while play dot lower. The reason I've added the dot lower is because at the end, when we ask the question if they would like to repeat the game, if they do put in capital letters, it will automatically convert the Y or the N to a small letter, and therefore agree to whether you want to play or not. And then this is going to be equivalent to Y again with a colon. Then we can say print did you win the game, and again let's say we want to use this, let's use an unbiased coin, so we got 0 and 1. So if tails is equal to 0, then we're going to print oh no, you've got tails, you lose. Otherwise we're going to say, well, hey, you win. So this is pretty much all the game is asking you. Now if you want to restart the game, all you're simply going to do is you're going to make your variable called play, and the play is going to be input a question over here, and the question is going to simply ask, would you like to play again? Question mark, and then in square brackets we're going to put Y or N, end that, and then colon, end the speech marks, and end the brackets. If we'd put, for example, yes here, then we'd have to put yes here, and then we'd have to put yes, and therefore no. So now let's run the game and let's see what's going to happen. Now what's happened is we've got another expected in an indent block. So what's happened is we need to first of all indent this, which means we have to indent this, and then indent this, indent this, indent this, indent this, and then we can leave it like that. So I've indented this one too much. Okay, so now it should work. Okay, yeah. Now, effectively what it's doing here is it's set itself onto a repeat. This is because, again, I've got my indentation wrong. So to avoid this situation, make sure you don't have your indent wrong. This is to do with your white space over here. So to avoid this, all I can do is just rerun the module, and it's still happening. Now, why is this happening? This is happening because over here, again, I forgot to indent my actual play variable. So it doesn't really know what to do, so therefore it's asking it automatically and is therefore constantly repeating it. Let's try it again. Okay, brilliant. So now if you look here, since we're saying we will only play if we're saying yes, and we've got our heads or tails game here. One sec, I'll just make this a bit smaller so you can see. Yeah, so we've got our heads or tails game here, and it says, did you win the game? And obviously in this case, since we're using a unbiased coin, it says, oh no, you've got a tails, you lose. And then it's asking us again, would you like to play yes or no? So if we say no, this is where the game ends. However, if we were to rerun the module, and let's say, okay, it says, hey, you got heads, you win. We can say yes, and now it says, oh, you won again, well done. Would you like to repeat? Yes, I would. And then let's say no this time, and that's where it ends. So a few things to take away from this tutorial is, first of all, Python cannot actually make its own random numbers. You have to physically tell it to generate its own numbers. The next thing you have to know is that if you want to play a game and you want to ask them after you've ended the game, would you like to restart, make sure you always have a variable called play is equal to yes or something of that nature, depending on what you're trying to make. Another thing you want to make sure, a very critical thing, which as you can see obviously over here, is the indentation blocks. You need to make sure you get these right and in the right place, otherwise small errors like this will occur, which can get very, very, very annoying and really freaking confusing. So if you're talking about this, make sure you have at least one indent to talk about, your first print statement, and then if you're going to use another statement called if, you have to use two indents, or it'll indent it automatically depending on what kind of Python version you're using. Then when you're using the else statement, make sure it's aligned with the if statement, and the print statements are aligned together as well. And with the final variable here, the play variable, where we're inputting whether you want to play again or not, is based upon this entirety here. So when I had the play variable here, this is completely separate, so it's going to do it on its own. It's not really giving me an option, therefore it's going to ignore it and just do it what it likes. By indenting it, we're saying, okay, it's actually within the while loop, and it's only going to play if we want it to play, if we say yes. And if we say no, then since there's no following code whatever here, nothing will happen. If you have any questions about this, because it's not the easiest thing to grasp, feel free to message me on my website, or you can message me on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching and listening. I'm Carl from carlsapti.com.